Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Machine, coming to you live from Summit Academy. In this video, we're working on that lesson 11 for Unit 3. And it says, which one of these pairs of lines does not belong with the others? So what I want you to do is pause that video, try to come up with some reasoning. And specifically, you should try writing one reason for each. Meaning, for example, I could say A does not belong because of this. So go ahead, pause the video and try that out. All right, so for example, you could say A does not belong because has negative slope. You could say B does not belong because it has lines are, let's say, not parallel. You could say C doesn't belong because it has a slope of 0. So you could say the slope is 0 for this one. And for the last one, you could say the only thing that does not belong is neither line goes through, let's say goes through 0, 10. So that's some ways. Again, any of those options could be right, but just saying, looking at one of these, what is different from this one versus the other three. So now on to the next part for 11.2. It says, for number 1, it says to plot at least 10 points whose y-coordinate is -4. And then it says, what do you notice about them? So make sure you're remembering, again, ordered pair. Ordered pair is that x and y value. So make sure that you're remembering plot an x value and a y value to get both those points. So let's say for both of those, if I plot some points, again, it said a y value of -4. So I have to find y is -4. Again, this is y. So I'm going to say I have, move that up a little bit, this is y. And so that means this. I plot some points. Again, I can plot any points that have a y-coordinate of -4. And so if you notice, again, notice how I have some points like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we'll say. That's fine. So any points that have a y-coordinate of -4, what's happening? Well, we could say this. I could say they form a horizontal, meaning left and right, horizontal line on that point y equals -4. Now that's a helpful point to have because if you look at number 2, it says which equation makes most sense to represent all of the points with y-coordinate of -4. So if I'm looking at those equations, I would say the equation that I need is that y equals -4. And I could say that's the only one, only equation that is true. That is true for every point, we graphed. So if you notice, and I look at those equations, or look at that line, again, anything along this line of y equals -4 would be a point that has a y-coordinate of -4. And then it says for number 3, it says plot at least 10 points whose x-coordinate is 3. So I find on my x-axis, again, find moving left and right where x equals 3. So I find it right here, and I can say, okay, that's going to be the point x equals 3. And I could say, again, anything along this point is x equals 3. So I could say something like this. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And what I notice is this. I can say that the points, all the points, y on vertical line this time, because going up and down, vertical line of x equals 3. So make sure you're understanding again, when you have that y equals a number, it's going to be a horizontal line. However, when you have x equals a number, it's going to be a vertical line. And so we can say the same kind of idea. We're saying that x equals 3 is the only equation. It's the only equation that is true for every point graphed. Every point we graphed. So if you're trying to come up with that equation, you have to make sure that you're solving and finding what that x value would be. And that says for number 5 to graph that equation. Well, so I know that for each of these, let's do in red for this one. I know this is gonna, since it's x equals a number, it's gonna be vertical line. And I can graph what that looks like. So I find, let's do red. Let's say x equals -2. So I find where x equals -2, and I'm saying any value along that line is a solution. So I could say something like this maybe. Let me actually label it too. Let me say this is x equals -2. And we could do a similar idea for our other equation of y equals 5. So that's going to be a horizontal line. So that means it's going to be going from left to right on y equals 5. So I'm going to find y equals 5 and draw that horizontal line. So let me actually move, can I move these? Yeah, I can. Move that down. So let's say, draw a line. Again, y equals 5. Regardless of as we move from left to right, our y value is going to stay the same as we have y equals 5. So make sure you can write for yourself and say, okay, I have this is going to be y equals 5. So again, real simple for yourself. Make sure that you're graphing that vertical line of -2 and that horizontal line of y equals 5. So now, again, we're going to be doing some, sorry, this should be 11. Let's try that again. There we go. It should be 11. There we go. So at this time, I will start it, but you have to finish that lesson 11 practice. So on the back, it looks like this. It says, suppose you want to graph the equation y equals -4x minus 1. So what are some steps that you can do to draw the graph? So I could say something like this. For that part A, I would start by plotting the point 0, -1. Again, that's going to be your y-intercept. Let me actually write that in too. That's your y-intercept. And that's helpful because I know that point just by looking at the equation. And I can say, hey, then I can count 4 steps down and 1 step right to plot another point, since our slope is -4. So again, when you're talking about your slope, again, it is -4 over +1, so that's just 4 down and 1 right. So make sure you can go from your equation. See how it has -4 in front? I can go from my equation to my graph. So then once I plot that next point, I would draw the line that goes through both points and label it. So those would be the steps that I do for that part A. And it says for part B, how would you check to see if that graph is correct? Well, I could try seeing if the solution is correct, meaning that ordered pair of 1, -5, I could plug into my equation, and I can say, well, I have y equals -5, and so I say -5 is equal to, and instead of x, I have +1. So I have -5 is equal to -4 times 1 minus 1. We're seeing, is this correct? If it is, then we know it is a point on the line. So I say -5 equals -4 minus 1, and -5 equals -5, so I know that this is correct. So again, make sure that you're writing both of those down for yourself. That way you have this point. So make sure that you're continuing on, draw those lines on the graph for number 2. Make sure you write the equation as needed. Again, when you write those equations, again, the equation is in y equals mx plus b form, where m equals slope and b equals y intercept. So just make sure you're remembering that as you move it. Feel free to ask questions. Be sure to pause, rewind, replay as needed. And as always, super slam that subscribe button.